The courtroom fell completely silent as the man who used to love me stared at the judge with sheer terror in his eyes. For 2 agonizing days, Julian had used his expensive legal team to paint me as a broken and unstable veteran, who was completely unfit to raise our young son. He stood there confidently, but the moment the judge opened my sealed military file, the color drained entirely from his face. Judge Margaret Thornton adjusted her glasses and read a single sentence that changed everything in an instant. Julian whispered that it was not possible. His voice barely audible in the quiet room, while his new wife lost her smug expression in the gallery. For the first time in 10 years, the father of my child was terrified because the truth was finally coming to light. Before we continue with this intense moment, I want to pause and ask a quick question. Which country are you watching this story from right now? Please drop your country name in the comment section below. And if you are hooked on this journey, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to support the channel. A decade earlier, I did not return from my final deployment looking like a celebrated hero. My military transport touched down on a bleak autumn afternoon, and my mind was heavily clouded by intense pain medication. I remember the overwhelming scent of hospital antiseptic, the heavy metal braces locking my shattered left leg, and the sharp agony in my chest with every single breath I took. Our humanitarian convoy had been struck by a devastating explosion overseas, leaving me with fractured ribs, a shattered pelvis, and a ruined knee. I had managed to drag 2 young soldiers from a burning vehicle before the blast threw me across the dirt road. Despite the grueling physical rehabilitation ahead, I felt comforted knowing I was returning home to my husband and our 3-month-old son Christian. Julian greeted me at the hospital with a large bouquet of flowers, smiling warmly for the cameras and holding my hand whenever the nurses walked past. I genuinely believed I was the luckiest woman alive, entirely unaware that he had already decided to abandon our family. 2 days later, he walked into my recovery room carrying a thick envelope and placed it coldly on my hospital blanket. He told me that he had already signed the divorce papers and stated that he did not marry someone he would have to care for. I stared at him through a haze of medication, completely broken as he gestured toward my wheelchair and said our baby would be better off without me. There was no guilt in his eyes when he walked out, leaving me entirely alone. My older brother Garrett brought me home to an empty house where the closet belonging to Julian was completely bare, and half the furniture was gone. A neighbor later confirmed that Julian had already moved into a luxury apartment downtown, with a woman from his office. The timeline of their secret relationship proved that his betrayal had begun long before my deployment had even concluded. Every morning became a battle against severe physical limitations, while I desperately tried to care for my infant son. I learned how to move from the bed to my wheelchair without dropping Christian, forcing myself not to cry when my ribs screamed in agony. My therapist reminded me that children do not remember the parent who walked away, but they always remember the one who stayed. After 18 months of intense rehabilitation, I was medically retired from active duty and forced to figure out my identity without a military uniform. Fortunately, my former commander, Colonel Abigail Ross, offered me a civilian position within the Department of Defense logistics sector. The job allowed me to provide a stable life for Christian in a modest townhouse that finally felt safe and peaceful. As the years passed, Julian paid his court-ordered financial support but completely vanished from the life of our son. That peaceful silence shattered on a random afternoon when a certified letter arrived at my kitchen door demanding full legal and physical custody. Julian claimed that my physical injuries and emotional trauma made me an unstable parent, and he wanted to take Christian away permanently. My attorney Brenda Hayes helped me gather extensive medical evaluations, school records, and character statements to prove our home was perfectly stable. We soon discovered that Julian was only pursuing custody because Christian had been accepted into an elite junior leadership academy. Julian wanted to parade our son around his corporate circles to claim credit for the achievements of a boy he barely knew. During the trial, the lawyer representing Julian repeatedly called me disabled and questioned my mental stability due to my combat experiences. I maintained my composure until Judge Thornton requested the complete and unredacted military file that the court had previously lacked. The entire room grew incredibly tense as the judge broke the seal and began reading the official records of my service career. The judge read aloud that despite sustaining multiple life-threatening injuries, I had repeatedly refused medical evacuation, until every single person under my protection was safe. The official Army psychological evaluation concluded that my decision-making under extreme stress was exemplary and demonstrated flawless emotional stability. The attorney representing Julian lowered his head in defeat, realizing their entire argument about my incompetence had completely collapsed. Judge Thornton then looked down at Christian and asked if his mother took good care of him every single day. My 10-year-old son looked directly at the judge and stated that I never quit, even when my own body was hurting. He told the court that I always said soldiers do not leave people behind and that I had never left him behind either. The judge immediately denied the petition for sole custody, stating that a person cannot disappear during the difficult years and return only when rewards appear. She established a very strict gradual visitation schedule supervised by a counselor to ensure that the emotional well-being of Christian was fully protected. Julian sat in total silence, completely defeated by the truth he had tried so hard to distort. Outside the courthouse, Julian approached me without his usual arrogance and tearfully admitted that he had been incredibly selfish. He confessed that he had spent years convincing himself that I was the broken one when in reality he was the one who ran away. Christian listened quietly and decided that he wanted to know his father but specified that the process must happen very slowly. Over the following years, Julian actually showed up consistently and began working with a non-profit organization that supports wounded veterans. Today, Christian is preparing for college as a deeply compassionate young man who understands that true strength is not measured by medals or revenge. The greatest victory was not winning a court case but teaching my son that character is defined by the people who stay.